Rinko Kikuchi is Akane in Westworld, John P. Johnson, HBO. This post discusses the plot of Akane No Mai, the May 20th episode of Westworld, in extensive detail. For all that I enjoy watching and writing about Westworld, I'm not sure that I'd say it's an absolutely top-tier, first-caliber show. Much of the reason I'd make that judgment is that halfway through its second season, it still seems to be noodling about with what sort of show it wants to be. And while one of the new expectations of our current age of television is that viewers ought to give series a season to figure themselves out, however impractical and ask that may actually be, my patience is not infinite, especially with a show like Westworld, which was given an unusually long break between its first and second seasons to sort itself out. Akane No Mai was both the version of the show that bores me most, and my absolute favorite version of it. I've never been particularly interested in Westworld's obsession with transgression, especially the most grotesquely violent visions of transgression, so the idea of visiting an experience explicitly designed for guests who find Westworld to tame, as Lee Sizemore, Simon Quarterman, described Shogun World, didn't do much for me. I adore the way Westworld explores our attachment to narrative tropes and characterization, and the way Akane No Mai handled that was an absolute delight. When Maeve Thandie Newton, doing for this season of Westworld what Evan Rachel Wood did for the last one, Armistice, Ingrid Bolso-Bertel, and Hector, Rodrigo Santoro, enter Shogun World, both they and we think it's possible to predict what's going to happen. Fine, I may have cribbed a little bit from Westworld. You try writing 300 stories in 3 weeks. Lee confesses to them, and us, as they notice that Shogun World has its own version of the Mariposa, and its own geisha hostess, tattooed sharpshooter and handsome bandit. Initially, it seems that they're going to be correct. Maeve and Akane, Rinko Kikuchi, bond over their attachments to their daughters. Armistice, always one of the flattest characters in Westworld, becomes mesmerized by her equivalent, while Hector bristles at his. But while Lee suggests that the characters are basically mirrors for each other, if you're asking, can you trust Akane, what you're really asking is, can you trust yourself, he tells Maeve. Shogun World begins to show Maeve new possibilities. It's not merely that the emphasis on hospitality is different in this new setting. It's that the malfunctions spreading from Westworld into Shogun World are causing Lee's narratives to go off the rails, while in Maeve's memories, the man in black, Ed Harris, stabs her before shooting her daughter. Akane kills a representative of the Shogun who demands that she turn over Sakura Kikisukazan, a geisha Akane rescued from awful trauma and trained to be a brilliant performer. Later, she kills the Shogun himself, even knowing that it may be at the cost of her own life. And while Westworld doesn't explain precisely what's happening in Maeve's head as she witnesses this alternate trajectory, it's clear that Akane's sacrifice, and the possibility that her own story could turn out differently from the way either the writers or she herself had imagined, unlocks something in Maeve. Her declaration that, "I found a new voice, one that Lee didn't create or predict," is one of the most genuinely thrilling moments of this second season of Westworld. In the other major storyline this week, the transformation of Dolores Abernathy Wood into a horror figure is one of the scariest things the show has done. In contrast with Maeve's sense of liberation from her narrative, Dolores' decision to overwrite Teddy's, James Marsden, personality against his will and abandon his dedication to what they've shared together suggests that forcing someone into a new story can be an awful form of violence. I don't know that Dolores is necessarily wrong when she tells Teddy that there's a storm descending, like the blue tongue epidemic that nearly destroyed her family's herds of cattle when I was a girl. And if we are going to survive, some of us will have to burn. Where we're about to go is no place for a man like you. To grow, we all need to suffer. Teddy's dream that he and Dolores can ride off and find a part of Westworld that's isolated and beautiful enough to settle in probably is a fantasy. Despite having seen some of the Delos facilities, he can't quite grasp that the world he lives in is a creation, and one that's about to be scoured by its creators for their own purposes. But that doesn't make Dolores' approach to him any less cruel or instrumental. She wants him with her, but optimized for her own purposes so that he won't make her vulnerable or slow her down. And she's willing to treat him in the same instrumental way Delos employees have treated them both for decades, reformatting him so that he'll more neatly fit the story Dolores is trying to write for herself. At this point in the show, I almost think the most interesting thing Westworld could do would be to pit Maeve and Dolores against each other. Neither one of them is precisely pure here. Maeve's new powers essentially mean that she can force other hosts to wipe themselves out so that they don't kill Maeve and her comrades, though she tends to deal with the individual hosts she meets with persuasion rather than coercion. Dolores is simply overriding the hosts she wants on her side, content to keep Clementine, Angela Serafian, around as a zombie and Teddy as something new, playing out Maeve's more personal version of liberation against Dolores' dream of conquest could force us to confront the question of what's more important, the stories we tell ourselves or the master narratives we have to live in.